This is chapters 41 through 45 of Lock the Doors. 41. In films, people go to the carnival and kiss on the Ferris wheel, but there are no fairs around here. The only restaurants are McDonald's and some other fast food. When people go out with each other, that's all they do. They go outside, and then when they get cold, they come in again. But I don't want to stand around with Amy. I want to do something special. I want to feel like we did when we danced. It's the toss of a coin who I ask. Heads it's Mom and tails is Nia. It's hard to choose between awkward and hostile. After a best of 3, I wait until we're alone, then turn to Mom and say, "If Jay was taking you out tonight, where would you like to go?" "Is he taking me out?" "No, theoretically speaking." She looks disappointed, then smirks like she's caught on. "The cinema's always a safe bet." Except that's not true. It's safe when you're married and you can sit silently next to each other for 2 hours, but I'd spend the entire time panicking. Mom looks like she wants to say more, but she doesn't. She watches me with a strange expression until I say, "Thanks for that." It doesn't matter what you do, it's how you do it. I must make a face because Mom shakes her head and says, "I'm sorry, it's something I read once." She used to buy loads of self-help books after Gary and before Jay. She hasn't opened them for a long time, but I guess she still remembers some of the words inside. I think back to the Head Start line and how special it felt sitting there with Amy. Then I think of the courtyard and the cafeteria and the sensorium. Before her, they were only places, but not now. I hug Mom and say, "Oh," then cuddles me back when I don't let go. "Thank you," I whisper. 42. I know I'd knock for Amy, but she shook her head. "I'll come to you." I'm waiting awkwardly when she arrives because it's easier than another awkward family meeting and whatever that was with Nia. "Where are we going?" she asks, and I hand her $2. "For the bus fare. We'll get a limo next time." She shrugs. "I like the bus." I thought this would be weirder than it is, but I'm surprised how calm I feel while we take the trip into town. Amy doesn't say much. She looks out the window and points when she sees something interesting, and I hope she likes what I planned. I keep thinking what Mom said. It doesn't matter what you do. It's how you do it. When we get off, Amy looks at me expectantly, and I change my mind because it's stupid. We could have a hot chocolate instead, or look around the shops, or get the train somewhere else. But anyone can do that. I want to show Amy something special, even if it's only special to me. It's not somewhere I go anymore, so I'm surprised when we get there so quickly. But my legs are a lot longer these days. "This is it," I say. "A fire station?" It looks exactly the same, but so different, like everything from that time in my life. I remember Dad in his uniform lifting me from the ground up to the fire engine steering wheel, the steps in between like mountains. I remember open days when he would climb impossibly long ladders while I sat on Mom's shoulders and cheered with the crowd below. And I remember that framed raffle ticket lying in its broken frame on the carpet. This is where my mom met my dad. I tell Amy the story, and when I'm almost done, she says, "That's so romantic." It was. But I don't know where the ticket is now. Mom probably threw it away. Amy's quiet for a while, then she says, "Or maybe they kept half each." I doubt that. Dad couldn't leave quickly enough. One day he loved us, and then... "I'm sure he still loves you." I stare straight because I'm not sure, and Amy can't be either. That's only what people say to be kind, so I don't argue. Instead I say, "I'm sorry if this is weird." "It's not weird. Thank you for telling me." A sense of fear races through me, then fades. I can't shake every last doubt that Amy is hiding something, but I want to, and days like this will help. "So what now?" she asks, but I hadn't thought that far ahead. She could tell because she smiles and says, "It's my turn to show you something. Come on." She holds my hand and I don't pull away as I follow her. It's not a warm day, so there aren't many people around, but she doesn't lead me to the normal places in the park. We go past the bandstand and the cafe and the lake. We walk until I'm sure we're going out the other end. Then she turns right, taking a path I've never seen before. The trees are closer together here, and the birds sing over our silence. Amy crouches, points, and whispers, "There's one." And when I follow her gaze, a squirrel runs across the grass in front of us. Then another and another. When I look closer, they're everywhere. "How many are there?" I ask. Amy shakes her head. "No idea. Mom and Dad used to bring us here all the time. My brother called it Squirrel Park." A couple of them run over to Amy, who whispers, "Sorry, lads, I don't have anything for you today." The squirrels wait a few seconds, then bound off in opposite directions. "It might not be where my parents met," Amy says, "but it's still a special place for me." She zones out, and I watch the squirrels charge about as if every single one of them has overslept. Then I take a deep breath and say, "Remember your first day at school? Why did you pick me as your buddy?" Amy blinks away her daydream. "Huh? You chose me even though you didn't say anything on the tour." She sighs and says, "You looked heavy, Tom. I know how that feels." I think of my old life with Mom and wonder if I'll ever lose the baggage that she packed away the moment she married Jay. "You've never had a girlfriend before, have you?" Amy asks. I open my mouth, but nothing comes out. Instead, I stare at her until she says, "How come?" I shrug and she says, "Don't you like me?" "Yes." "Yes, you don't, or yes, you do?" I pause, find some courage, and say, "Yes, I do." "So why are you so scared?" "I'm not scared," I say, even though I am. A lot. Did I make up a story about Amy being trapped because the alternative terrified me? If there is no mystery to solve and she's just a girl who actually likes me, I have to admit I like her back. Amy goes to kiss me and I move, just a fidget, and instead of my cheek, she gets the corner of my mouth. She pulls back and looks at me with eyes I haven't seen before. Then she leans in and kisses me again, and this time I don't have to move. Sorry, got something stuck in my throat. 43. Can you remember the code this time? We're outside Amy's house and she nudges me and says, "I remembered it last time," but I don't think she did. When I was last here, Amy was drunk and her mom looked angry and her dad looked like he was holding something back. Perhaps he was only being protective. Maybe to a dad with a daughter, I'm the threat. That's what I want to think, because today everything changed and my worries are new but just as hard to tame. Amy's body hides the pin pad as she pushes the buttons, and I wonder if that's on purpose. Then she turns and says, "I'll see you soon." I think about kissing her again, then see the movement behind her living room window and stop. Amy looks behind her as if she can sense my concern, then squeezes my hand. "Today was fun." No one opens the door for her. She unlocks it and disappears inside. I stand around for a few seconds, waiting for a wave or a smile that doesn't come. Then I go home and fight the urge to watch from my window. Instead, I sit in the living room watching Aaron and Jay play Xbox while Nia cheers her brother on. "How was it?" Mom whispers. I think of the fire station and the squirrel park and the kiss and say, "It was good." 44. They've been there since the beginning, but I only noticed them today. Carvings inside my built-in wardrobe, words and pictures and lines. The first I noticed were 2 stick figures, one large and one small. You can't see them from the outside. I only realized when my shirt fell off a hanger and got wedged in the sliding rail, and there, when I pulled it free, they were. Lying on my side, my head in the wardrobe and my phone shining in the darkness, I saw more stick figures. Always 2, always one big and one small, and hundreds of vertical lines scored through like tally marks. And then, this is important to understanding, but they have the tally marks, just so you can see what they look like. The words are different in here. On the walls it says "help me," but in here it says "no help." Whoever wrote this gave up. I throw all my clothes on the bed and crouch in the closet space, then slide the door closed and sit in the phone's light. There are 8 sets of figures in total, all the same, and staring at them makes me feel uneasy. I take as many pictures as I can before I need to get out and suck in 3 deep breaths. This was a bad place. I'm sure of it now. No one would put this much effort into a game. The holes could be dismissed as a coincidence, and the writing on the wall could be someone's idea of a sick joke, a ghost story to scare the next owners. But who would sit in a wardrobe carving stick figures and making hundreds of slashes? If I show this to Mom, she'll freak out. She loves this house so much and I don't want to ruin it for her. Jay would still play it down and Nia's making the most of her last few hours with Aaron. I message Zach because I need to know if I'm being silly. When he arrives, I point at my wardrobe and say, "In there." He raises his eyebrows. "What's going on?" "Just get in and take this." I hand him my phone, but he doesn't move. "You want me to get in your closet?" "Just do it, you'll understand." Zach shakes his head, but clambers in anyway. When I pull the door closed, I hear rustling inside, then fucking hell. "Can you see it?" "Of course I can. What is it?" I slide the door open, but Zach can't take his eyes off the markings. "I don't know, but I think it's all linked. The locks, the writing on the wall, and this. It has to be." Zach stands up and flops on my bed. "You think it was Amy?" I picture her in here. This was her bedroom for years. She would have known every last bit of it. She either did it or she saw it. I should be telling Zach about our date, but instead, I'm already wondering if Amy tricked me after all. I don't know what to think anymore, I say. Why would her parents lock her in here but send her to school? Why would she come home every night if she was trapped? Zach stares at me, his mouth open and his eyes drawn back to the wardrobe he's just climbed out of. We need to know who lived here before her, I say. We need a timeline. Then we can figure out who did this. How do we get that? I look out of my window at Amy's new home and the 2 cars in the driveway. We ask someone who knows. 45. When I ring the doorbell, I hear a banging inside, then a muffled, "Who is it?" "It's Tom," I shout from next door. There's more banging, then a latch slides back and the door inches open. "Hello," Mrs. Hawkins said. "Who did you say it was?" "Tom, I live next door." She opens the door wider and grins. "No packages today, I'm afraid." "That's not why I'm here. I was wondering how long you've lived here." She pauses, then says, 1962. That's when we moved in." I swallow my excitement because this is exactly what I was hoping for. Mrs. Hawkins has lived here for ages, almost as long as our house has been standing. "Do you remember who lived next door in our house?" "Of course, the Morgans. They lived there for 40-odd years." "Did the Morgans have children?" Mrs. Hawkins shakes her head. "It was just the 2 of them. They were good neighbors. We never had any complaints." "Who came next?" Mrs. Hawkins rests her free hand against the wall and says, "If you want a complete history, you should come in. I'm not as strong as I used to be." She turns and wobbles toward her living room, and I watch her slide slowly into a chair. She pushes a button on the side, and the footrest groans upward. "If you want a cup of tea, you'll have to make it yourself. My sweeteners are on the side." She smiles, and I feel guilty for using her. All I want is information, but she seems happy for the company, and I make a silent promise that this won't be the last time I visit. When I've made the tea, I sit on the sofa opposite her and wait for her to carry on. Her living room is newer than I expected. It's mostly cream with a few framed pictures on the wall. There's a black and white image of 5 girls in a row, and I try to figure out which one is Mrs. Hawkins. Time scares me. I know it happens, but it doesn't feel real. Not until you see someone's history and you realize they come from a different world. 10 years feel like a lifetime to me, but to my neighbor, it's barely a blink. "Who came after the Morgans?" I ask, and she reels off a list of the next 5 owners. When she gets to Amy's family, I look for any suggestion that they hid something only a neighbor would see, but Mrs. Hawkins just smiled. "They kept themselves to themselves." That's what they say on the news sometimes when a killer is caught or a horrible truth is revealed. It's another way of saying they were hiding, but no one was nosy enough to notice. "There were 2 children," she says, "but I barely saw them. A lovely big garden, yet they only played outside for the first year. Such a shame. Maybe you'll use it more. I see a little boy sometimes. Is that your brother?" She means Aaron, and I say, "Sort of. My mom married his dad, but he only stays with us sometimes." She nods like she understands. "Modern families. It's different these days." Was there anything odd about the Pierces? I can't leave without asking. I'm clinging to the hope that Mrs. Hawkins saw something that wasn't quite right. "What do you mean, love?" she asks. "You'd know if you saw it." That's what I think, but out loud I say, "It doesn't matter." They still live too close for me to dig very deep. She could bump into them in the village, and what then? Would she tell them a boy had been asking questions? Instead, I stand to leave and say, "Thank you for the tea." It's only when my hand is on the door handle that she adds, "They were very noisy when they first moved in. Nothing to complain about. I liked hearing it, but after a while it was as if no one lived there at all."